A single meal. That's all it was. Just a plate of warm food for a man who had nothing. But how could she have known that by this time tomorrow the entire military would be standing at her door? Hey everyone, welcome to Legacy Tales, where real stories meet fate in the most unexpected ways. Stay with us till the end, because this story will leave you speechless. Samantha tightened her coat as she stepped into the small diner. It was one of those cold, bitter evenings where the city felt lonelier than usual. She had just finished work and was looking forward to a quiet meal when she saw him. Sitting in the corner, his head down, his hands trembling as he counted a few coins. His clothes were worn, his boots barely holding together, and his face, it told 1,000 untold stories. She didn't know why, but something about him struck her heart. Maybe it was the way he stared at the menu, flipping it over again and again, as if hoping the prices would change. The waiter came by, looking impatient. "Sir, if you're not ordering, I'll have to ask you to leave." The man hesitated, glancing at his coins one last time before nodding. He started to rise from his seat, his shoulders sinking with quiet humiliation. Samantha couldn't let that happen. "Wait," she said. "Add whatever he wants to my bill." The man froze, his tired eyes lifted, meeting hers in disbelief. "Miss, you don't have to do that." "I know," she smiled, "but I want to." For a moment, he just stared at her, as if trying to remember the last time someone had been kind to him. Then, with a shaky voice, he whispered, "Thank you." He ordered a simple meal, nothing extravagant, just enough to fill his stomach. But as he ate, Samantha noticed something. The way he held his fork, the way he sat. There was discipline in his posture, something familiar. "You were in the military, weren't you?" she asked. He looked up, surprised. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Once. A long time ago." Samantha wanted to ask more, but she sensed it wasn't a story he was ready to tell. So instead, she just let him eat in peace. She paid for the meal, wished him well, and walked out of the diner, thinking it was just a small act of kindness. She had no idea that by the next day, her entire life would change. The next morning, Samantha was in her tiny apartment, sipping her coffee, when she heard something strange, distant rumbling, like the sound of heavy engines. It grew louder, vibrating through the walls. She rushed to the window, and what she saw made her heart stop. A long convoy of military vehicles was rolling down her quiet street. Soldiers in uniform lined up outside her building. A few neighbors peeked from their windows, whispering in confusion. What was happening? Why were they here? Then, there he was, the same man from last night standing at the front, but this time he wasn't wearing his tattered clothes. He was in full military uniform, medals glinting on his chest. But what shocked her the most was what happened next. As the soldiers turned to him, they saluted. Samantha's breath caught. The man wasn't just a veteran. He was someone important. Before she could process what was happening, there was a knock on her door. She hesitated, her heart racing before finally opening it. And there he stood, straight-backed, his expression different from the tired, broken man she had met the night before. "Miss Samantha," he said, his voice strong. "My name is General David Lawson." Her eyes widened. "General? You didn't just buy a meal for a homeless veteran last night," he continued. "You saved a man who had lost all hope." Samantha shook her head, still confused. "But why is the military here? I don't understand." He smiled, a small, grateful smile. "Because I made a call. I told them about you, about what you did. You see, I was missing, declared dead after an operation overseas went wrong. For years, I lived in the shadows, believing I had no place left in this world." His voice faltered for a moment. And then, a stranger showed me kindness. Samantha felt a lump in her throat. The world forgot about me, Samantha, but you didn't. He stepped aside, and behind him, a group of soldiers snapped to attention. So today, the military stands with you. Samantha's hands trembled. She had only bought him a meal. Just one meal. And yet, here she was, standing in front of an entire military unit, honored in a way she never imagined. And then, the sound of aircraft filled the sky. Samantha looked up, eyes widening as fighter jets soared above her building, their wings gleaming in the morning sun. It was a salute, a tribute. Tears welled in her eyes. This was more than just a thank you. It was proof that even the smallest act of kindness can change the course of a life. Samantha stood frozen, her mind struggling to keep up with reality. The roar of the jets overhead sent shivers down her spine. The entire neighborhood had gathered now, watching in awe. Some whispered, others recorded on their phones. But Samantha... She could only stare at the man before her. The same man she had seen digging through a trash bin just last night. Now standing tall in his uniform, surrounded by soldiers who looked at him with nothing but respect. General Lawson took a deep breath. For years, I believed my life had lost its meaning. I had given everything to my country, and in the end, I had nothing left, no home, no purpose, until you. He met her gaze, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. Samantha, you reminded me that humanity still exists. That one act of kindness can bring a man back from the edge. Tears burned at the back of her eyes. She had never imagined that such a simple moment, just sharing a meal, could lead to this. Then another soldier stepped forward. He was older, his uniform decorated with stars. Miss Samantha, he said, his voice full of authority, yet warmth. General Lawson was one of our finest men. A hero. We searched for him for years, but he had given up on himself. You changed that. You brought him back to us. Samantha shook her head. I didn't do anything special. You saved a life, the man interrupted. That's more than most people ever do. Before she could respond, something unbelievable happened. The soldiers, every single one of them, stood at attention. And then, in perfect unison, they saluted her. Samantha's breath hitched. The weight of the moment crashed over her, and for the first time, she let the tears fall. General Lawson stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. I don't have much to offer you, Samantha, but what I do have is influence. He pulled out a small envelope and handed it to her. This is a personal letter to the Military Foundation. They owe me favors. If there's anything you need, a job, a home, a future, this letter will open any door you want. Her hands trembled as she took it. I don't know what to say. He smiled. Then don't say anything. Just promise me one thing. She nodded. Never stop believing in kindness, because it saved me, and one day it might save someone else too. Samantha clutched the letter to her chest as the soldiers turned, making their way back to their vehicles. The engines roared to life, the ground vibrating beneath her feet. And just as quickly as they had arrived, they were gone. She stood there for a long time, watching the sky where the jets had disappeared. Last night, she had shared a meal with a homeless veteran. Today, she had been honored by an entire army. And in that moment, she realized, kindness doesn't just change one life. It has the power to change the world. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. What would you have done in Samantha's place? And where are you watching from? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember, kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything.